delegates. Hello, Rochester. It is so good to be back, and thank you to Ken Martin and all of our dedicated, determined DFL candidates. Are you ready to take back the U.S. House and the Minnesota House? Are you ready to win the governor and the Senate races? A special note to my friend and partner in the Senate, Tina Smith. Tina has hit the ground running, taking on everything from supporting our farmers to standing up for our small businesses. Our colleagues in the Senate, they know what a great job she's doing. She's doing well, and we need her in the United States Senate. My wonderful husband, John, that you saw up here, is here with us, and our daughter, Abigail, who is in her first job out of college, and I'm glad they gave her the day off. So delegates, when I look out at all of you, I remember where I come from. I see the iron ore miners, like my grandpa, who worked 1,500 feet underground in the mines, who saved money in a coffee can in the basement so that he could send my dad to college. I see immigrants, like my relatives, on my mom and dad's side, who came to this country by ship, the humility that keeps us working together, searching for common ground. Friends, I see the humanity that we cherish, the equity we demand, the unity that brings us together around neighborhood potlucks, lakeside campfires, small-town coffee houses, and political convention halls. In Minnesota, we believe in hard work. We believe in getting things done. We believe in investing in one another. We believe in welcoming one another. We believe in looking out for one another. And during this chaotic and dark time, it can be easy to forget where you come from, to abandon who you are and what you value. You see it all the time. Right now, it's pretty much a non-stop shout fest on TV. But instead of fighting about what's left and what's right, what we really ought to be talking about is the difference between what's right and what's wrong. That's what I was taught growing up in Minnesota, and that's what I carry with me every single day in the United States Senate. Paul Wellstone put it like this: I don't think politics has anything to do with left, right, or center. It has to do with trying to do right by people. And I would add this: when we do right by people, DFLers, we get results. Take, for instance, net neutrality. When the FCC voted to repeal net neutrality, Tina and I and every Democrat in the Senate joined together and said clearly, the internet should remain fair, open, and equal to all. And guess what happened? The Senate overturned the FCC, and now the House must do the same. And by the way, on this issue of net neutrality, Al Franken was way ahead of his time. I had breakfast with Al and Franny recently. They said to say hello, and I'll tell you what I told Al: his work will live on. Another example, DFLers, when Russia tried to hack our election, Democrats and Republicans in Congress worked together to get funding to help protect our elections and upgrade our system. Because this is how it goes. Hack us once, shame on them. Hack us twice, shame on us. This isn't about one candidate or one party or even one election. It's about protecting our democracy. And when the president decided to take our country out of the climate change agreement, making the U.S. the only nation in the world not to be a part of it, Cities and states and businesses kept working to meet those goals. And now renewable energy is our state's second largest source of electricity generation. My friends, if the president won't meet those climate goals, we will. And when the president and his allies tried to take away health care coverage from millions and millions of Americans, the 48 fighting Senate Democrats stood together, from Joe Manchin to Bernie Sanders, and we got 3 courageous Republicans, and we won. That happened. So you see, we cannot forget where we come from, because where we come from determines who we are. It determines what we get done. It determines where we are going. That's why it should concern all of us that so many elected officials have lost their way. They are forgetting where they come from, the cities and towns that form our nation, places that aren't bound by a beltway or gripped by gridlock. They are forgetting who they work for, the people they represent, the people who work hard for our economy and deserve an economy that works for them. They are literally forgetting what they work for, to preserve the Constitution and to preserve our democracy. My friends, we will not forget. We cannot forget. We are here for the people. And today, Minnesotans, there is a choice before us, because in just 5 months, there will be a ballot before us. Will we abandon our Minnesota ideals, or will we hold on to those values no matter how disastrous things get? Will we be owned by the big pharmaceutical companies, or will we own up to our responsibility as Minnesotans to work hard each and every day? Will we give in to Wall Street, or will we invest in our people, like Governor Dayton has done so doggedly throughout his time as governor of this state? Democrats, we have a choice too. You know, we learned some things from the last election, things about where people are, about what we care about. And when I'm out there visiting all of our counties, talking to you, listening to you, it's clear what Minnesotans care about. You care about election security and job security. You care about protecting the Mueller investigation and the workers of this nation. You know, unlike some Republicans, we Democrats can do 2 things at once. We can safeguard our democracy and stand up for the American people. And DFLers, we can show the rest of the country how it's done, because our agenda focuses on people. And the people of this state and our country, they deserve good jobs. So we've got to focus on keeping jobs here in America and making things here in America. Our country is at its best when we make things, when we invent things, and when we export to the rest of the world. The American people, DFLers, need better pay. So we've got to support our unions, because unions help all Americans succeed. Even people that aren't in a union, unions help Americans succeed. And by the way, the American people understand, when it comes to this economy, that immigrants are a vital part of our country and our workforce. Because guess what? Immigrants don't diminish America, they are America. The American people, DFLers, they need lower costs. So we have to bring down the cost of everything from airfare to college, and we have to rein in student debt. If billionaires can refinance their second homes and their yachts at a cheaper rate, students should be able to do the same. And not everyone needs to go to a 4-year college. And we've got to respect that choice. My sister didn't, not at first. She didn't graduate from high school. A few years later, she got her GED. She went down to Iowa and worked in a manufacturing plant. And a few years after that, she got a 2-year community college degree. And after that, years later, she finished her 4-year degree, working the whole time. There are many paths to success in the United States of America. And while we're at it, something that's not getting done right now, let's take on the big challenges, the one that there's no easy solution for. Let us talk about infrastructure, right? Let us talk about automation and what's happening in the future with our economy and prepare for it. And let's get something done to take on economic concentration and monopolies. That's what we should be doing, DFLers. Those big interests like the pharmaceutical companies, we don't have to hate them. We don't even have to stop working with them. We just have to stop working for them like Washington has been doing for decades. So let's pass my bill. Let's end the ban on negotiating cheaper prices for prescription drugs under Medicare. Let's unleash the power of 41 million seniors. That's what we need to do. You know, the president claimed he supported that. In his famous words, he said the pharma companies were getting away with murder, but then he didn't even include it in his proposal. The administration keeps saying they want to bring the prices of pharmaceuticals down, but then when he gave his speech saying he would lower prices, do you know what happened? The pharmaceutical stocks went up that very day. The headline in the Wall Street Journal actually read, "Drug industry relieved by price proposal." The drug industry doesn't deserve relief from high pharma prices. The American people do. That's who deserves relief. And it is no secret that special interests and super PACs are working hard to make it harder to vote. Through voter suppression and gerrymandering and allowing more and more and more money in politics. Democrats, we know that voting shouldn't be harder, it should be easier. So let's restore the Voting Rights Act. Let's make those online media companies tell us what those slimy ads are and who is buying them, whether it's the Koch brothers or the Kremlin. Let's pass my bill to automatically register people to vote when they turn 18, all across the country. That's how you add to the vote. Let's get dark money out of politics and pass a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Let's do that, DFLers, now. When our citizens have to compete with the big special interests, not to mention Vladimir Putin, to get an equal voice, we are doing democracy wrong. Democrats, we know what democracy done right looks like. In democracy done right, everyone has a voice, everyone can participate, and the people who are elected represent the country that we are supposed to represent, and that means everyone in this nation. So speaking of that, we are now up to 23 women in the United States Senate. It is an all-time record. And yes, my friends, even in the Senate, our lives are changing. You know, just last month, as the ranking member of the Senate Rules Committee, I took the lead and worked with my good friend, Tammy Duckworth, to make a small change to the Senate rules. So Senator Duckworth of Illinois lost both her legs fighting for our country when her helicopter went down in Iraq. And this year, at age 50, she became the first woman to have a baby while serving in the Senate in the history of our country. So our idea, we thought, maybe our workplace can change a little bit, and we thought maybe we could allow a new mom or a dad to actually bring their baby to the floor when we have votes, especially in the middle of the night. Well, this was a lot harder than I thought. they said to me, well, maybe we should just make an exception for Tammy. And Tammy and I said, no, we want a rule that changes this forever. Orrin Hatch said, and this was public, well, what if maybe one baby's okay, but what if we have 10 babies on the floor? And I said, we already have 10 babies on the floor. And then I added, okay, we would ever be so fortunate that we would have 10 moms on the floor that would have 10 babies on the floor. But finally, Tammy and I passed the new rule, and the next day, she was called in for a vote because we needed her there. And on that day, with a gallery filled with hundreds of reporters peering down, a 50-year-old decorated veteran with no legs wheeled herself onto the Senate floor, and on her lap was that 6-pound, 10-week-old baby named Miley Pearl. She became the first child in the history of the Senate, that would be since 1789, to make an appearance on the Senate floor, and she slept through the entire historical moment. So when people ask me how I keep my optimism up during these dark days in our country's history, I tell them that there are always moments of light and hope and new beginnings for our democracy. People who care enough to write and call and meet and advocate. Students marching and standing up. People who see politics not as a way to divide, but as a way to bring people together. People like you who march in those parades on those hot days in July and knock on those doors in those cold days in November. And a little baby named Miley Pearl who never knew she was making history, but she did. That's what keeps my optimism up, DFLers. So friends, every day we are making history. Right after the inauguration, the next day, millions of people marched all over this country, including tens of thousands in Minnesota and right here in Rochester. On day 3, do you know what happened? 6,000 women who marched signed up and said they wanted to run for office, and now we are up to 36,000 women. That's true. Women are taking the old saying, don't get mad, get even, to all new heights. It's changed. It's don't get mad, get elected. On day 9, people flocked to the airports when that mean-spirited refugee order came out. And who says that on a Saturday? Well, maybe I'll just go and protest at an airport. Well, that happened all over this country. Fast forward to my favorite march, day 100, the March for Science, with my favorite sign. What do we want? Science. When do we want it? After peer review. On day 186, DFLers, we defeated the bill that would have repealed Obamacare. And on day 291, we won major elections in the state legislature and in the governorship in Virginia and in New Jersey. My personal favorite was a New Jersey legislative candidate who said the day of the Women's March, well, I hope they will be home in time to make dinner. Do you know what happened to that guy? He was defeated by a woman. And the transgender candidate in Virginia ran against a lawmaker who made a name for himself sponsoring bills to take away her rights, and guess what? She won. On day 326, in a victory for civil rights, in a victory for dignity and decency, Doug Jones won that Senate seat in the state of Alabama. That happened, Democrats. And on day 428, there was another march in Washington, the March for Our Lives. 800,000 people filled the streets to demand common sense gun reform. And it wasn't just in Washington. There were 800 sister marches across the country, including 13 in our state. You know, law enforcement, I used to be a prosecutor. Law enforcement have worked on this, and we couldn't get it done. The moms after Sandy Hook devoted themselves in the names of their little babies that they lost in that elementary school, and they came up short. And I don't know about you, fellow Democrats, but I would be more than happy to be bested by a bunch of 17-year-olds and get universal background checks done. We can do that. But we have to keep going. That level of energy, that level of enthusiasm and engagement across our state, across this country. Because you know why? The midterms now fall on day 655. So we have 5 months, DFLers, 5 months to knock thousands and thousands of doors, 5 months to make thousands and thousands of calls, 5 months to show Minnesotans that we'll show up for them. And on that day, with a lot of hard work, with the wind at our back, we are going to send a clear message. We are not just resisting, we are insisting on a better way forward for America. So when you leave this convention, I want you to think of this not just as a moment in time to overcome. That's how you feel sometimes, right? You see those tweets, you wake up in the morning. Well, Democrats, we cannot pull the blanket over our eyes. Little Miley Pearl could sleep through that historic moment, but we cannot. Now is not just a time to overcome. Now is a moment to shine. It is an opportunity to show the nation what Minnesota stands for, to show the world what America is, to make it clear that we will leave no one behind. This is who we are as a state. This is who we are as a country. And this is how we will win. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your endorsement. Thank you very much.